Today on Investigate TV Plus, from antibiotics to cancer treatments, hundreds of vital drugs have been in short supply.
It is an incredibly complicated problem and one that sometimes leads to tragic choices.
We take an in-depth look at what's being done to get medications to the families who need them most.
We have our recipe for success and we can't get the ingredients.
Plus, dangerous toxins found in drinking water. And our investigation uncovers the impact on the people who unknowingly drank it for years.
How would you be responding?
I think they should be concerned.
Then comfort, security, and plenty of playtime.
I know when not to wear my hearing aids.
What inspired a man to turn his home into a safe haven for rescued beagles.
In-depth stories that inform and inspire. You're watching Investigate TV Plus. It's an ongoing crisis with no end in sight. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. Shortages of critical medication continue to rise. According to a 2023 report from the U.S. Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, between 2021 and 2022, drug shortages increased by almost 30%, reaching a 5-year high of 295 active shortages.
And this is not a new problem. The report details how more than 15 critical drug products have been in short supply for more than a decade. Experts say increased demand can cause shortages, but how drugs are made and sold in the country contributes significantly, and doctors say the consequences can be deadly.
Reporter Kristen Crowley introduces us to patients and practitioners navigating the supply challenges firsthand, and those tackling the issue head-on.
You open up the cube.
9-year-old Josh Didier likes a good challenge.
Let me try to solve this.
He has fun putting puzzles together because they have solutions.
Come on, you got this, you got this.
But for months, one puzzle has been unsolvable for his Kansas City area family, and it's no game.
This seems like something that we could figure out.
Josh has ADHD.
Every other day I take one of these.
3 of his siblings have it too. His parents, Jeremy and Brian, say they know how to keep the disorder at bay.
Medication is the thing that helps them most.
But getting prescriptions filled, that's another thing.
We have our recipe for success and we can't get the ingredients.
More than a year into a nationwide ADHD medication shortage, Jeremy says making it all work hasn't been easy.
It's a full-time job. It's a lot.
Most recently, she says, she's had difficulty getting one of the medications Josh takes daily. She keeps hearing the same story from pharmacies.
It's back ordered and there is literally no date as to when it's going to be in stock.
And what happens if he doesn't take it?
Well, he gets pretty bouncy in class. He's making weird noises, he's throwing things at other students, he's kind of being singled out probably by other kids as like, okay, that kid is weird. What is going on over there? And it's heartbreaking.
ADHD affects more than 17 million children and adults in the United States. But the pharmaceutical shortage isn't limited to ADHD medication. In fact, hundreds of drugs have been impacted recently. Among them, children's medication, antibiotics, and cancer treatments.
Why are we seeing so many drug shortages?
We're near about a 10-year high, and most of the shortages that we see are due to some sort of quality or process issue with manufacturing.
Dr. Michael Gania with the American Society of Health System Pharmacists says cost is a driving factor.
In some of these generic medications, there may be actually manufacturers that are losing money on some of these products. So they'll eventually change their portfolio to things that are more profitable. And that makes the market less resilient and more prone to shortages.
The FDA declined to speak on camera, but said in a statement, the public should rest assured the FDA is working closely with numerous manufacturers and others in the supply chain to understand, mitigate, and prevent or reduce the impact of intermittent or reduced availability of certain products. But these shortages are nothing new.
So drug shortages have been a chronic plague for the last number of decades. They've become more frequent, more severe, and more unpredictable.
Dr. Andrew Schumann specializes in head and neck cancers at the University of Michigan Medical School.
So what happens when somebody who needs their cancer treatment can't get the medication they need?
It is an incredibly complicated problem and one that sometimes leads to tragic choices.
A 2020 study published in the British Medical Journal found that every month delayed in cancer treatment can raise the risk of death by around 10%. Schumann testified to Congress in March 2023, raising a red flag on that issue.
Sick Americans deserve access to life-saving medications.
It's one that Senator Gary Peters is working to address. He authorized a recent report on the health and national security risks of drug shortages.
And while some shortages may only be an inconvenience, others have had devastating impacts on patient care.
Working with other lawmakers, Peters introduced legislation in 2023 aiming to address vulnerabilities in the pharmaceutical supply chain and increase availability.
I thought, I want to be the change I want to see in the world.
Meanwhile, one mother in Florida has taken matters into her own hands.
There was no place to call for a patient or a family like me, and I found that very frustrating.
In 2019, using her business background and expertise, Laura Bray founded the nonprofit Angels for Change. She works with members of the supply chain, including drug makers, hospitals, and the FDA, to fill supply gaps, often tracking down extra medications or alerting manufacturers to increased demand.
People began to call, and then hospitals and physicians and pharmacists. And every single time we just tried to help. We said, I'll try. And each time I tried, I met new members of the supply chain who were willing to do extraordinary work with me.
It's a passion project born from personal adversity. Laura's daughter, Abby, was diagnosed with leukemia at just 9 years old.
They told us that the number one thing that we could do as parents was compliance of the protocol.
But the hospital didn't have the medication Abby so desperately needed. Laura called pharmacies, lawmakers, and pharmaceutical companies until she miraculously found an extra supply.
I know what happened to our family shouldn't exist. That is what drives me.
Today, Abby is cancer-free. And this chief changemaker has helped hundreds of thousands more, securing hundreds of treatments of more than 24 medicines on shortage. Hope amidst so much uncertainty.
It just seems like we're moving backwards.
The Didier family is trying to solve this problem the best they can, waiting for a solution they say is long overdue.
The fact that we cannot get that medication right now for all the people who absolutely need it is incredibly frustrating, and the fact that we have no answers as to why that is happening or a plan for that to be resolved, unbelievable. How does that happen in this world?
In late 2023, President Biden announced nearly 30 new actions aiming to strengthen supply chain resilience, including plans to convene a new White House council on the issue and to deploy the Defense Production Act, which would help U.S. manufacturers make more essential medicines right here at home.
As for what you can do, experts recommend patients have open conversations with their prescribers and pharmacists about any difficulties obtaining medication and available alternatives. Also mention any concerns about switching prescriptions.
Still to come, is the solution medication or diet and exercise? We get a doctor's insight on ways to control your cholesterol.
But first, a community poisoned and no plans to help residents discover the impacts to their health. We go in depth to get their questions answered. Drinking water across the country could be contaminated with toxic chemicals known as PFAS.
In 2023, the U.S. Geological Survey said nearly half of the nation's tap water could have one or more of these forever chemicals, which were once used in hundreds of household products to make them water and stain resistant.
Some communities have taken action, including a city in Georgia, after learning PFAS had been leaking into their water supply for years. They changed their water source, but no agency has ever tried to measure the impact on the people who drank the contaminated water.
So investigative reporter Andy Parati traveled 60 miles northwest of Atlanta to help find some answers.
Alvin Jackson is on his way to see one of the crown jewels of North Georgia, the Oostanala River that flows through the city of Rome, providing drinking water to thousands of homes.
We swam in it, we fished in it. The river's always been one of our richest resources.
A blessing, but over the past few years, a curse as well. In 2016, state environmental officials identified elevated levels of a toxic chemical in the river called perfluoroalkyl, or PFAS for short. It's man-made and known as the forever chemical because it does not break down naturally. A recently settled lawsuit put the blame on carpet manufacturers and chemical companies upriver. Exposure to PFAS has been linked to severe illness, including high cholesterol, thyroid disease, and cancer.
What does this lead to? What is it going to do to me?
While the city changed its water source 8 years ago, state health officials have never tried to measure the impact of the contaminated water. The Georgia Department of Public Health telling Atlanta News First in July it does not have plans at this time to conduct testing, saying most people in the United States have measurable amounts of PFAS in their blood. So, we decided to try to measure the exposure ourselves, purchasing these testing kits from a company called Eurofins. It's developed the first direct-to-consumer at-home PFAS blood test.
Today's the 22nd.
We asked 11 Rome area residents to participate, people who have lived in the area for at least 20 years.
1, 2, 3, go. Do it at the side of the finger. Yeah, that's great. Oh, I hate this part. Really hard.
Alvin joined too. He's on the City of Rome's school board. A few weeks later, the results arrived, revealing every participant with some level of PFAS in their blood. That was expected, but the amount of PFAS detected in the participants' blood raises concern. Nearly all of them had higher levels than the national median.
And you would expect it to be elevated, I think?
We asked 3 scientists to review the results, all with extensive backgrounds in PFAS research, including Dr. Dana Barr, professor at Emory University's School of Public Health.
These are the reports.
She traveled to Rome to provide her perspective to the participants in person.
I do think that there is some exposure that's occurring in this region or with these people, obviously.
Definitely exposure in this community in some way.
I think you could use this information to go to the city or to the state and say, we want an exposure study done in this area. And I think that it warrants it given this information.
The other scientists agree. While the sample size is small, Dr. Jane Hoppin with North Carolina State University says more testing should be conducted.
Everybody should be tested, particularly in communities where we know that the water has been contaminated. You've opened your eyes, you've opened this community's eyes.
Dr. David Andrews is with the Environmental Working Group, a nonprofit advocacy organization.
If you worked for Georgia's Department of Health and you saw these results, how would you be responding?
I think they should be concerned, and I think they should be responding in terms of thinking about what are the action plans for this community and what needs to be done.
Alvin's PFAS levels, the highest of all the participants, nearly 7 times the national median.
So I'm wondering, how is this going to affect me directly? Am I going to develop some type of cancer or some type of disease,
By a raise of hands, how many people want the state to do more testing?
Despite the results, the state's health department's decision remains the same. It does not have plans to conduct blood testing, adding without direct oversight and knowledge of how the tests were administered, it would be irresponsible for DPH to comment on the results.
3 months after Dr. Barr visited Rome, Georgia, Emory University announced it obtained a $35,000 grant to test at least 200 people for PFAS in the area. The test results could give residents more guidance on how to better monitor their health, as the National Academy of Sciences recommends people with elevated levels of PFAS obtain more health screenings to catch potential illnesses early. In Atlanta, I'm Andy Perotti.
In Rome, Georgia, the participant with the lowest PFAS levels was Callie Swafford, and she says it's no surprise to her. For nearly 10 years, she's driven 25 minutes outside the city to collect her drinking water from a natural spring.
The proof is in the pudding.
So it's validating for you that...
Yeah.
To learn more about how PFAS could be impacting your drinking water, head to InvestigateTV.com and search Forever Chemicals.
Still to come, the headquarters of Howls.
Here we go.
Meet the man who opened his heart and his home to over a dozen dogs.
And statins can help lower cholesterol, but are they an excuse to ditch healthy habits? Up next, the medical Mythbuster finds out if medication alone is enough. Your body needs cholesterol to help perform important tasks, such as making hormones and building cells. But the CDC says too much of it puts you at risk for heart disease and stroke.
Living a healthy lifestyle can help keep your cholesterol at beneficial levels, but that can be easier said than done. So if you don't want to eat a balanced diet or hit the gym, you can just take a statin, right? Not so fast.
In this medical Mythbuster, Viv Williams talks to a cardiologist who says your not so healthy habits may make it harder for a statin to do its job.
If you have high cholesterol, the American Heart Association says that statins are the most effective lipid-lowering medications for most people. But taking statins does not mean you can let your healthy lifestyle choices slide.
If someone comes to me and says, "Doc, give me this statin so I can eat what I want or do what I want with my lifestyle," I say it doesn't work that way.
Dr. Stephen Kopetsky, a Mayo Clinic cardiologist, says statins reduce your risk of heart attack and stroke by blocking the production of cholesterol in your liver. That means less ends up in your bloodstream where it can accumulate in your arteries. He says statins are important medications, especially for people who know they have coronary artery disease, because the medication will reduce their risk of cardiac events. But he adds that statins are not a magic bullet.
We know if you take a statin but don't change your lifestyle, the statin doesn't really work very well.
Why not? Kopetsky says lifestyle choices, exercising regularly, not smoking, maintaining a healthy weight, eating a heart-healthy diet, and reducing stress improve the health of your arteries and overall health, making a statin's job easier.
If you don't have disease, I don't like to push statins on people. I'd rather have them change their lifestyle.
But is it possible to lower cholesterol on your own without the help of a statin?
You bet you can do it on your own.
Kopetsky says many of his patients have done it over time by gradually introducing healthy diet and exercise habits. But he also notes that some people, no matter how hard they try, can't keep cholesterol levels low because their bodies are genetically wired to produce excess cholesterol. He says this group should consider taking a statin in addition to incorporating a healthy living plan. With this Medical Mythbuster, I'm Viv Williams.
Coming up, they're cute, iconic, and some might say loud. But for one man, they are all a little slice of heaven.
I love them all.
We travel to Alaska, where over a dozen beagles found their fur-ever home. Young or old, rejected or neglected, there's a sanctuary outside Anchorage, Alaska for beagles.
Reporter David Allgood introduces us to the man who's made it his mission to give over a dozen rescue dogs a loving home.
Let's get right to it. There's a house in Wasilla, Alaska that has a deck that's full of dogs.
So I'm full-time a beagle wrangler.
Dave Dorsey likes to laugh because he's a happy canine keeper.
But I love them all.
And these 18 beagles at his Alaska Beagle Ranch are barking. Wait a second, make that 17 beagles and...
Got one basset, his name is Bill, and I like to say that he identifies as a beagle.
Basset Beagle Bill, got it. Well, they bark because they're happy knowing this is their forever home.
Where's my doggies at?
They're a ragtag bunch of unwanteds, but here with Dave, there's one thing they will never do without again, and that's love.
You're at the headquarters of the Alaska Beagle Ranch. This is where all beagles come to be happy.
This all started for Dave back in 2009.
I was divorced for about a year, and I decided it was time to get a dog again because I always had dogs.
And well, here we are. He knows all their names.
We got Duke, we got Pearl, we got Xena, we got Bonnie, we got Duke 2,
And yes, beagles are notorious for their barking, but Dave has a solution.
I know when not to wear my hearing aids.
But Dave, you might miss something important like this. But get these beagles in their comfort zone in the house and look at these sweet faces, loved, content, and calm because of this man's huge heart.
Yeah.
This is truly home sweet home for these unconditional loving creatures, but does Dave have a favorite?
Shiloh's had a rough life, and he's had a hard time and whatever, and he just steals my heart. This time last year, he was kicked by a moose. I'm about the 5th home he's been at. And this is his last one, of course.
And maybe Shiloh embodies what the Alaska Beagle Ranch is all about. So a bark, it could mean so many things, but a simple tail wag, well, maybe that's all we need to know.
It's all about love. You know, you could have the worst day going on, and you come home and you got these guys here, they just make it better.
Well, as a beagle owner myself, I can only handle the barking of one beagle.
You're not going to send Louie there? You want Louie to go?
Louie can stay with us for
Okay,
now.
so can you imagine being his next door neighbor?
I cannot.
Too? Oh my goodness.
I worry about my neighbors sometimes.
That's it for us on Investigate TV Plus. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. Thanks for watching.
On the next Investigate TV Plus, healthcare workers question their safety as attacks against them are on the rise.
I'll see someone walking down the hall and will wonder, do I need to protect myself?
We investigate what's being done to address it and explore the debate over punishment versus prevention.